It's Tuesday on Jasiri, and we begin a time when the world is called to pay attention. From November 25th, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, to December 10th, Human Rights Day, the 16 days of activism urges global solidarity to end violence against women and girls everywhere. In Nigeria, this moment is not just symbolic, it is necessary, as too many women still face violence reinforced by culture, silence, and systems that fail to protect them. Today, we are asking the hard questions. When does culture begin to harm instead of guide? And what role does faith, media, and institutions play in either reinforcing or dismantling gender-based violence?
First up on the agenda, a warning to all those who freely drop comments online without thinking of the consequences. And it is a very important conversation in light of the 16 days of activism that kicks off today. Now, Daniel Oyaji, and a youth corporal serving in Kaduna State, has found himself in a bit of a situation. It all started when he shared good news online about receiving an award of recognition for his good work during his tenure as Secretary General of his CDS. Underneath this post, Kelechi C commented saying, "You know, quick talk now. I don't they chop like 2 students, they go now." Ladies, wait. Sorry. Daniel replied back saying, any female students wey no coordinate themselves, I go blank them big color. How you go day SS3, but you carry blank and boobs way past 400 level uni lady? Haba is wrong now. He soon came under fire for his comments, with people reporting him, calling him a rapist, and outrightly condemning him. It is said that NYSC stepped in on the matter, and he was withdrawn from his PPA and taken to the NYSC Secretariat to explain himself. Although, let me tell you, I have looked everywhere. There is not a statement or comments from the NYSC on their Facebook page or their X account. So we have not seen an official statement. Now, Oyaji has apologized for his, quote, careless and unguided comment, saying that it was intended to be a joke and that he was ready to bear any consequences that came with the sanctions. I'm not done, no. Please just hold on, no. Okay? I just want us to be on the same page. So part of his statements read that it was intended to be a joke, but it was cruel of me, which I later deleted, but was already recorded. I acted without thinking through, and I wish I could undo and retrace my statement. I admit that I have portrayed myself to be an evil person and that nothing I say would convince you. I have betrayed the trust, confidence, and faith of those who have regards for me. The disappointment and shame I've caused due to my unfiltered words cannot be erased by apologies. While I own my fault and the consequences of my unguided comment, I will emphasize again that I'm not that kind of person. I was just carelessly joking. I've used my voice and platform as advocacy against girl-child harassment and abuse. Our young girls are to be protected, guided, not exploited. I stand against any form of harassment and abuse of our female gender. He says, I'd like to apologize, 1, to NYSC Nigeria, who gave me the opportunity to serve, 2, the Kaduna State government and the LG, 3, every woman that felt insulted by my comments, especially those that have been victims of such abuse by trusted superiors. 4, apologize to my family. 5, I apologize to my church and the body of Christ. 6, apologize to Nigeria. 7, I apologize to my future self for staining the name. 8, my sincere apology to my past and present students whom I have disappointed. 9, to my PPA, Judean International School, who I have failed through this careless comment. Lastly, I'm ready and willing to cooperate with all relevant authorities with any necessary information regarding this issue in order to clear my name. Hold on. I just want to make sure I give you everything. So we have, as I told you guys, we looked for a statement from NYSC, whether on their official Facebook or official X. I did not see, but there are others who have been following this story. So someone else who has been following this story, who apparently followed him to NYSC when he was called to answer questions, said that he was immediately summoned by the NYSC disciplinary committee at the state headquarters. He honored the invitation and appeared before the panel. Then also the alumni president of the college and somebody else went with him to engage with officials. He appeared to be very somber and remorseful throughout the process, and it was evident that the last few days had been tough on him emotionally and mentally. They met key officials of the NYSC disciplinary committee, and they acknowledged that Daniel acted inappropriately, making unguided and insensitive comments. They also clarified that the statement was made in a Misplaced humor. Catching crews. And they are fully cooperating with the investigation, and that he was withdrawn from his place of primary assignment and redeployed to NYC headquarters for the remainder of his service year. Blah, blah, blah. The team has been an investigative team has been constituted, and the NYC is actively tracking other core members who made similar unguided comments under the post. I just wanted to make sure I give you, because I know Lolo is about, it's all right.
You know, when I say that, we cannot just hide under this word, cruise, to become insensitive and stupid. This is a young man who has just come out of school, fresh, that is supposed to be looking forward to a future where things will be better for him. But you know, some of these unguarded statements that can be peer pressure. You know, a lot of people go on social media, they do not even really know what they're saying. They just see a thread going. They just
and they even sound like they want to be savage.
Yeah, they want to know that they want to belong. I need to have a sarcastic comment.
Because the comment started from the first guy who said, "I don't chop like two students already."
So these are things that they need to thoroughly investigate, because some of these coppers are serving in schools.
Yes,
and there are girl children there. So if they are making this, you know, sometimes many Yoruba will say, there's no smoke
without fire.
Without fire. Mm-hmm. No matter how they couch it as a joke, there might be some element of truth in these things.
So what actually made it worse is this is the main comments that he was replying to. But further down, as people were calling him out, somebody even said, "Would you like it if your daughter was raped?" And his response was, "Na life now, na so life be." Basically, I'm telling you, I want to go and read the rest of the comments. It's like, "Na life now."
Tolu, honestly, there is nothing you can tell me. This guy has been doing it and is doing it. You know, you talked about, you know, him being remorseful after.
I did not say you. I did not say he.
Everybody will be remorseful.
He will be remorseful.
You've been caught. You have been caught in something.
You're an actor, and it's obvious.
Already.
And it's obvious, you know, that he and the other guy that were chatting under that comment.
Yes.
You know, it was like a thing for them.
Yeah.
They're probably friends. They've talked about it. Oh, let me go for service. You know, because why would you come out and make such unguarded statements? Like, how can you carry
this? This is like PTSD for me. You know, when I was young, I've always been bustier than a lot of people.
Yeah.
You do not know what I have gone through. I have been told to get down. I have been victimized, bullied by students. One time I came into class and they had poured milk all over the table. And they said, Motunde is the one, then they used to call me Motola. They said Tola was the one making milk, tin milk in class. So her manufacturing, she spilled milk all over. A young girl like me, I was a virgin till I left university. So you can imagine what that meant to me. When you will see any woman who is developed, which is normal growth for a woman, and you will make comments about that.
So I want you to stop saying women.
In such a sexualized way.
I want you to stop saying women. I want you to say girls. Because I was tall and I was busty. And so by the time I was 12, I remember one of my sister's friends. I was 6. I had to follow them to university. My parents were working. So I was in like a student center. He did not know how old I was. I was, I think, about 15. And this guy had finished toasting me. My sister came and was like, "Do you know how old my sister is?" As soon as she told him my age, I always remember his name, Brian or Johnny, because these children, that's abroad. And so there was a time I used to walk like this. I used to hunch because I developed early. So I was very skinny and very busty, and I absolutely understand you. So you already have people who know that most likely they're going to be somewhere where they're students, and their train of thoughts is this sexualization of young girls, not women. So there are two things I want to say. This generation, you need to think about what you say. I'm happy he said it, because in some ways their words reveal who they are. So we need to be happy it was said. But secondly, now for the rest of his life, or maybe at least for the next 10 years, anybody Googles you, you want to go and look for a job. People are they're doing investigations on social media. They want to know the kind of comments you've made. This is the story that will come up about you.
You know, this is the reason why I am very careful when it comes to commenting on social media, because you don't know how far it would actually go. We've seen, you know, instances where, you know, male youth corps members were taken to villages or communities for service, and then they end up impregnating the younger girls there, and they run away and leave them.
Don't let me go into NYC. No, this is not. If we start that thread of Have you had any negative? I remember our fellowship brothers. You know, in school, I was just a pious Christian girl. Anything that God and Jesus, I just gravitated toward. And that was the time we first got born again. You know, we go for fellowship. And this brother would tell me that for me to receive the gift of the Holy Spirit, I have to come personally to their lodge for prayers.
No different than the ones that say that it's only me. Come and spend 5 days in my house, and I will deliver you, and I will give you, or fruit of the womb.
No. There was no amount of frisking. This brother did not frisk me.
What about the fact that there are up-and-coming pastors who would, you know, rent a house and then get girls, a lot of them, to work
to be
for
cooking
them.
and
doing everything. And, you know, daddy.
So I don't want us to stray away from this, and I think we need to emphasize again. For me, this is again a reminder of the rape culture that exists in Nigeria.
Yes.
The way we justify abuse of power, the way we justify the sexualization of young girls, the way we justify male behavior, because somebody will say, so are the girls too not developed? But we need to look at it for what it is. And this is why Nigerian men are going abroad and catching and getting caught and finding themselves in jail and then finding themselves deported because they're chasing young girls, because the things that they did in Nigeria that they did not get consequences for, they think they can get away with it outside of the country.
I, for one, think not just this guy, every other person who has commented under that post needs to be arrested.
So according to that guy, he said that other people are, of course, being investigated, looking at their comments.
They need to investigate these children. They need to investigate them. This is not something that we should continue to allow. Like Tolu will say, it's so... When you think of it, the girl is not safe at home.
You're not safe in school. You're not safe on the road. You're not safe in mosque.
You're not safe in your community. Do you know when I was young, once you get to your community, you feel this sense of calm.
Yes.
But do you know that if Fimisha goes out, I'm using phone to follow her. Where are you? Are you walking home? Well, should I send your brother?
Let me tell you, I'm struggling not to be a helicopter parent. I'm struggling to give Korede freedom to experience. But my mind is always so worried about, okay, who is she with? What do I know about them? I'm just like, I do not want my child to be the 1 in 3 or the 2 in 3. And I don't know how much control I can have over it.
Everything. Just a little bit.
I had discussions with my son this holiday, and I found out that the way my first son thinks, I said, hey, I have a lot of work here. Because we don't interact, we need to be very intentional parents. Gone are those days that we allow our children to, our parents
really
are not as involved.
Yes.
But now, I want my daughter to tell me, if somebody makes her uncomfortable, I ask, even to lecturers in school, I tell her how to go. Please don't visit, don't go to their lodges, even though you're in the university. Anything you need to tell your lecturer, let it be done
in his office or
in his office. Yes. With the door open, even if he says, sir, I'm more comfortable if the door is open. You don't need to do all that.
Do boys have to have these conversations?
They need to, because you cannot underestimate how exposed these boys are, the younger generation. You know, they have a mind of their own, and they feel they can do. And
I was reading, I like to read. 1 in 10 young children under the age of, I think, 10 or 12 in the UK says that they know a friend who has used AI to create nude images of another classmate. We're going on a break on that note. What do you think your children are doing? Remember, they said there was a show in Nigeria that, I think it was when I was growing up, at the end of the 6 p.m. news or 5 p.m. news, they would ask you, do you know where your children are? I think now we need to start asking, do you know what your children are doing? Let's take a break. Now, today on Jasiri, we're confronting a conversation that goes beyond individual cases or headlines, one that examines and forces us to look at the systems, beliefs, and institutions shaping the lives of women and girls in Nigeria. Gender-based violence does not exist in a vacuum. It is enabled by culture, reinforced by silence, covered by media narratives that sometimes blame victims, and upheld by institutions that often fail to deliver justice. Our guest today is one of the strongest voices in this fight, Dorothy Njamenze. She's a survivor, advocate, founder of the Dorothy Njamenze Foundation, and a woman who has turned her pain into purpose. From working with faith leaders to reframe cultural teachings, to challenging bias in the media, to demanding accountability from security agencies and government, Dorothy is helping reshape how Nigeria understands and responds to gender violence. So what needs to change? Who needs to act? And how do we build a society where women and girls can feel safe, heard, and protected, not only by their families, but by their culture, their media, and their country? Dorothy, it's always a pleasure to have you on, Jasiri. Thank you so much for joining us again today.
Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. All right, Dorothy, let's just jump right into the conversation. We need to start by asking if there is an update on the Justice for Eliana story. Before you answer, let me bring our viewers up to date. Gosh, it's so, there are some things that is just hard.
Pace.
Eliana is a 2-year-old girl who just shortly after starting school, her mother picked her up and noticed she was in pain, trying to sit, prompting her to inspect the child. The mother said she found blood and they rushed the girl to the hospital. Medical personnel at the hospital, in the presence of police officers, reportedly confirmed that the child had sustained tears on both labia.
Well, the mother actually said that, she then attempted to report the case to Galadima police station, but alleged that officers were dismissive and discouraged her from pressing charges. As she further claimed that, when she insisted, the case was later transferred to the Usie divisional headquarters, where the school management allegedly offered to settle the matter with 500,000 naira. So a male teacher was initially detained but was released after 2 days, and the school has continued operations since. And this is yet another heart-wrenching case of violence against girls in Nigeria. Please, can you tell us, is there any update on this case?
Well, as of today, they're supposed to be in court as of today. Today, it was said that they will be heading to court. So I need to check in on the team. When law enforcement tells you you will be going to court, there's no guarantee exactly when you will go to court or if you will go to court. So I need to check in on the team to see if we actually made it to court. Again, even similar to what you were discussing about the other the youth pauper, every institution has at least the precarious liability that they owe to parents who entrusted their children into their hands to ensure that the best, everything done is in the best interest of the child. Protecting perpetrators of violence is not in the best interest of children. And so I applaud the mother for speaking up, because if she did not speak up, this matter would have been swept under the carpet like so many other matters. It's not a one-off experience. It is something that happens very often. And I hope that other mothers and fathers take a cue and stop keeping quiet about these things. Everything doesn't go the way we want all the time, but if you don't speak up, how will people like us know what is happening and where to help?
And I want to talk about something I mentioned before we get further into our questions, and that's a sort of a sense of a rape culture that exists in Nigeria, in which the statements like the one that the youth corporate made are justified, they're dismissed, they're termed just catching crews. What do we do about this culture, which seems to enforce, justify, protect, whether it's comments, it's actions? How deeply ingrained do you think this rape culture is in Nigeria?
Well, culture for me is the way of life of a people, and whether this way of life is enforced by what we learned from our parents, or what what we got from peer pressure, or what the institutions in which we operate make us believe. Because it is thought that regimented institutions, for instance, make females want to pretend they don't feel as offended as they do, because they need to look strong. Otherwise, they lose their positions, amongst other things. So the rape culture is very, very institutionalized in Nigeria. A lot of people are socialized into believing that as a female, you should never fight back. That as a male, you have certain privileges and rights. And a right you have is to be pleased by every female every female around you. But it's not your right. It's not supposed to be a benefit of a relationship.
Yes.
Of a mutual relationship. It's supposed to be a benefit of a mutual relationship. And trust has a huge role to play in that. Consent has a very huge role to play in that. So having systems that make people see women as less human, having systems that make people see women as objects for pleasure, objects for satisfaction, devoid of emotional rights, devoid of human rights, is something that has enabled this rape culture over time. The unfair, very expensive cost of justice in Nigeria that rises by the second is another enabler of this rape culture. So because majority of the females who are denied access to things that will give them a means of livelihood enough to pay their bills or participate effectively in society by being able to buy their own food themselves, amongst other things. So because a lot of females fall into these categories, you tend to have the justice system unable to entertain them. If you go to so many police stations today, you still have to buy file. You still have to pay for file. In fact, some police stations will request for you to pay for investigation. And then when you finish paying for investigation to be heard, you buy file. When you have finished buying your file, you will pay to mobilize the officers to invite the perpetrator to the station or to go and make an arrest. When you before the average range for the last bill I gave, that's the inviting perpetrators to police station, was around 15,000 naira. Now it's a minimum of 50,000 naira.
Wow.
And so how many Nigerians earn 50,000 naira? How many Nigerians who earn 50,000 naira are willing to, let go of 50,000 naira as cost of only inviting the perpetrator for questioning or, making an arrest? When you finish, you will go to the hospital because baseline medicals need to be ascertained. Even if it is a 2-year-old that is raped, the person is supposed to pay for the person's medical bills and the medical bills of the perpetrators. After all, it is the person who was raped that wants justice.
Yeah.
So it means that the cost of the cost of the medical care or access to medical care is one reason that a lot of people are going to say, you know what, let me leave it. Then when you're done, you will pay for medical reports. When you're done paying for medical reports, you will pay for police reports or for the police to transfer to legal. And when the police has transferred to legal, you would also pay for the matter brought to the court. You will pay for the transportation cost of the prosecutors every time the prosecutors are in court. And so many times when the prosecutors are in court, many of the victims do not know the names of their prosecutors. That is one thing we found out. And many victims don't even know what the charge in court is. All they know is that they were told to come to court. Were they prepared for what they would experience in court? The direction things can go. No, they're not prepared enough. In fact, in so many cases, we've had situations in the Dorothy Jamante Foundation where we paid for the transportation cost of police prosecutor, and the police prosecutor went to court and throughout did not utter a word to the people the police prosecutor is representing in court. However, he was talking with the perpetrator of violence against the child. So there are a lot of situations, whether it is when we ask girls, why did you make a man of God to sin? Or a boy, actually, why did you make a man of God to sin? 2 weeks ago in Abuja, it was 11 boys that were raped by their malam that we were talking about. It started with 4 boys, and the next time the 4 boys were to come to conclude the investigations, 4 more boys had opened up. And then by the next time, it was 11 boys, and we needed to support to be able to have these people get access to medical care. Many of the parents of other children affected have refused to let the children speak up, because in the community, these boys are now being branded as Nura's girls, because Nura is the perpetrator's name. And at the end of the day, these kinds of things that are making those parents to abstain from speaking about the injustice done to their sons, are part of what ingrains the rape culture in our system.
Absolutely.
That is how stigma reinforces and enables the rape culture in our system. This is just a typical example.
Okay.
We have a 12-year-old who is 3 months pregnant currently, and she's grateful to her perpetrator. She thinks he's a cool guy. She thinks he's a nice guy because he gives her food to eat, which her parents cannot afford to give her. At the end of the day, I remember those campaigns about the Girl Not Bride campaigns. Give her a pen, not any part of your body, but a 10, so that she can learn to read and write and be more useful to the nation. And so at the end of the day, these are different ways that socialization, affects different stakeholders and players in the society, and it further ingrains the rape culture. So whether we're trivializing the emotions of the females, or we're giving entitlement mentality, or promoting unhealthy masculinity, with the males, or we're refusing to fund systems that support survivors, or we're pushing the burden of proof entirely to the survivors or to the victims, these are different things that enable the rape culture.
Dorothy, you've answered so many of our questions in one. We're going to go for a quick timeout, but you've been working with religious and cultural leaders who are very powerful forces in Nigeria. And we'll talk about how that work is going. Let's go on a quick timeout. We'll be right back. A conversation that marks the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Girls and Women, and also the start of 16 days of activism against sexual and gender-based violence. We have Dorothy Njemeze with us. Dorothy, so you've been recently working with cultural and religious influencers or leaders, let's say that, because they are very powerful, and we know that they're quite powerful in a climate such as Nigeria. So I'm really quite interested in the fact that many of them have come. So I want to know, because they are the gatekeepers, and we want them to move from gatekeepers to being move away from being gatekeepers and bystanders to being people that actually help to enforce what we're trying to do. So how has that gone? Has there been pushback? Because you're actually challenging them to change narratives that are quite long-standing. Some narratives, they say, are backed by holy books, and some narratives are backed by culture. So talk to us about that.
DNF, we believe that already leaders of faith and culture are gatekeepers, but we want them to move to being active bystanders. It's not just bystanders, and recognize the influence that they have. And we think very much that if they utilize their influence properly, then we could prevent a lot of these harmful normative practices that have over the time culminated into what we call today gender-based violence, sexual or gender-based violence. I know, for instance, that there are so many practices we have seen. We have worked around virginity testing, breast ironing. There are communities that if a man is supposed to travel, people come in and stitch the woman, the wife, so that she doesn't have an opportunity to be unfaithful to her husband while he's away.
Wait! Dorothy, slow down. Dorothy, slow down.
I've never heard
For the
that.
people at the back, I need you to repeat what you just said.
Okay. There are people we have helped in the course of the work we do, where the communities in which they are, if the husband is to travel, the woman needs to be stitched up, and so that she doesn't have an opportunity to be unfaithful to the man. Remember, she has to be, her chastity matters a lot to the generations born and unborn, right?
Hey.
And so before he comes back from his journey, they take out the stitches to prepare her to receive her husband. And there are a lot of honor practices like this. The breast ironing, for instance, a lot of people believe that when the breasts of young girls start protruding, the girls start attracting men to themselves. And so they place a hot stone or wood on very, very hot, and then they press the breast of the girls and then tie it up to
flatten it.
What makes the breasts protrude and ensure that they don't come out. The virginity testing things, a lot of harmful normative practices are not cultural. However, because it is the parents inflicting them on the children, people now think that, well, family knows best. One of those things would be the family supervised rapes that we have seen, especially in Niger State. And at FCT, we saw a lot of it as well. We were introduced to that as corrective rape, where people were raping people to correct their style of thinking. However, at the end of the day, we found out that in some places, when families think that the girls are not focusing on marriage, they drug these girls and then, supervise the rapes and keep drugging her until she is pregnant.
Oh my
And these
God.
things have happened so many times. We in Niger State, we have a lot of people who take these girls to herbalists. And guess what? Some of the herbalists they take them to are females. And so they are tortured, concoctions are administered on them, and they are supposed to sleep with the person that the family needs them to get married to test the potency of the concoctions that were administered on them. And if they resist, they are physically held, restrained, either by the old women in the family or young boys. These are the trends that we have tracked. Some of the trends we have tracked. There are a lot of trends around harmful widowhood practices where women were told that they need to be home for 3 months to prove their money and everything. And remember, because you are home, you cannot work. And because you cannot work, you rely on, the things people bring to you. And when people are bringing gifts and other things under the guise of checking in on the widow, a lot of propositioning is made, and these are entry points for a lot of abuse. Now, we have been able to speak with leaders of faith and culture to remind them of their influence. And in the process of the work we're doing around FCT, Nasarawa, and Niger, we have found some great practices. We have seen that a lot of religious text is taken out of context, and I'm talking about the Christian religion and the Muslim religious text. We have also seen leaders of faith deliberately preach about these issues and back up their preaching with the religious text. One thing I'm super excited about are the conversations around consent.
Yes.
You know that the Islamic religious text, makes it mandatory for a female getting involved in a marriage to consent to being in the marriage. So now, by telling these young girls that, look, as long as you do not consent, these people are going against the expectations, the religious expectations, and putting it out there. It's giving an opportunity for many people not to be able to perpetrate a lot of the actions that they are perpetrating. Then we have audacious utterances by people like the Esulupe. We have the Emir of Lafia, Mina, Chumada of Akwanga. There's so many people. Honor of Abaji. These are first class chiefs, who have a lot of influence among the chief in the traditional system, making audacious comments about criminalizing or dissuading people from participating in certain practices within their areas of influence. So, and we also had some situations where people made their palaces. We saw a Hakimi in Bida, whose palace is a safe haven for girls at risk. And
Fantastic.
so telling people that these are practical things you can do. You can make your places of worship, of your traditional palaces, a safe haven for people at risk to run to. And then when you speak and when you engage politicians, you can help us make certain specific asks. For instance, reforms in the police systems, ensuring that they stop interfering when cases of abuse are taken to court, and ensuring that the cases are sent to the right courts. Yeah. Because you have a lot of cases that the gravity of the cases are reduced and they are sent to the wrong courts. We saw a whole lot of these things. Are they peculiar to only the northern Nigeria? Absolutely not. It's peculiar to parts of Nigeria.
Yeah.
Are the perpetrators from only one part of Nigeria? The answer is no. Perpetrators are from different parts of Nigeria. During holidays, we have a lot of children that call us and say, what my mother is doing, I feel that it is no different from rape. She's putting eggs in us or her fingers in us to check if we are still virgins. And what is the definition of rape? Penetration. Without consent. What way can you tell me that a 12-year-old, an 11, a 9-year-old consented to their mothers putting their fingers in them? So these things that we highlight. One great thing we have done is that we bring in victims and survivors as resource persons, and We pay them as resource persons because we are experiencing the lived realities of these people.
Yeah.
So many times, in our town halls that we host, in our non-confrontational town halls with the leaders of faith and culture, we have had situations where they've told us, oh, we've never seen people come out and tell us these things about how it hurts us. Now, a lot of religious texts, I'm talking Christian and Muslim now, tell you that
All right,
you are supposed
Dorothy.
to protect vulnerable persons.
Yes.
Just before, I'm trying so hard not to dwell on, all that you have said.
A lot.
Because all the cases you've actually mentioned, are on a different level. But let's talk about the media now, because we know that in the fight against sexual and gender-based violence, there's a player that cannot be ignored, and that is the media. The media tells the stories a nation remembers, and it shapes sympathy, outrage, and even public opinion. But too often, we've seen survivors, often framed in ways that blame them. It trivializes their trauma or even elevates the accused. So if gender-based violence is going to be fought on the ground, it must also be fought in the newsroom. So how do we report responsibly and also tell stories that humanize and not stigmatize?
Well, great question, especially in this age where sensationalism is important. And what has made sensationalism important? The extreme commercialization. Every media outlet needs fake money. And so sensationalizing the headlines, sensationalizing the stories, whether or not the sensationalism hurts individuals, is something that people really don't care about. Responsible media reportage would be centering, would be trauma-informed, would be survivor-sensitive, the kind of questions people ask. We know that Nigeria is the first country to be pronounced by a court to be guilty of gender-based violence, and that is in the Dorothy, Njemanze, and 3 others versus the Federal Republic of Nigeria case. Now, when the judgment came out, it was a landmark judgment. When that judgment was pronounced, some media houses reported ECOWAS courts awards a total of 18 million naira to prostitutes. That was how it was put. But in this case, I was contesting being labeled amongst thousands of other Nigerians in Abuja, women and children. And I was contesting the way people were sexually molesting us. And still, despite the court judgment, the media labeled me prostitute, whatever that was supposed to gain. Well, at the end of the day, everybody is not as thick-skinned as Dorothy. Many people have harmed themselves. Many people are still harming themselves. Many people did not survive the harm they inflicted on themselves. Yeah. And so if the media recognizes that, the same way we are trying to hold, the social media space, the technology space, to be responsible, the media recognizes that the media can be a source of death.
Dorothy, now that you mentioned, social media, I just want to go into my question so that you can really expand on that for us. When we're looking at digital media, that means we're talking social media and, public reaction basically happens there. And now we have seen that social media is seen as a courtroom where issues are decided by whoever champions whatever cause, whether negative or positive. And it does not help. And sometimes it harms a lot. So what do you think about this trial by social media? Because sometimes it's as if the other institutions that people put their trust in, it fails. When they go to court, they don't see judgment. And on social media, it depends on who is challenging. And now we have a lot of, in quotes, social justice avengers.
Avengers is good, yes.
They are like Avengers. So if your cause is sweeting me, I will follow, I will do something. But if it's not, I will stay on the other side. So what do we do? Because it's as if we cannot ignore it.
Well, even these social justice avengers or whatever it is, are not above the law. That's one thing to remember. One of the reasons I am still alive, and I can say authoritatively, is because of social media. Sometimes, especially where you're up against the state, where you have a dissenting view from popular opinion in the state, or you have an unpopular opinion, so to say, it looks like everything is skewed against you. But when you put your facts and figures out on social media, there's possibility to get the help that you need. And that was how I ended up in the ECOWAS court. Everything that I had was taken away from me. But by putting out my information on social media, I got the help that I needed, right? Are there people who do a lot of wrong, a lot of injustice, perpetrate a lot of injustice with this? Absolutely. There's so many of them. In fact, there are some of them who all they need to do, they feed off servicing the rape culture, servicing everything that dehumanizes women, amongst other things, you know. And when they finish, maybe a few fights with people producing fake things, and a few fights with whoever else that make them look good to polish their opinion, their image, and then they continue perpetrating these injustices.
Yeah.
I'd like to remind everybody who is a consumer of all these things that at the end of the day, 6 feet below is assured to every one of us. We don't know when we are going to die. And I always encourage everybody to live their eulogy. A lot of the people on social media have lost hope. They've lost faith amongst everything. And these people, a lot of the influencers or opinion shapers or molders feed off the fact that, you know, people are looking for where a sense of belonging from the safety of their homes or the safety of their devices. And at the end of the day, whether or not, you know, people are arguing in the right direction or not, the law should take its precedence. I am not one that believes that the government should have unnecessary influence on social media and come and do regulations. The social media platforms do a lot of regulation already, and so the government should do government work of making sure that, for instance, people are held accountable for the kind of things that they do. Actions and inactions of people need to be taken into consideration, and then the legal processes should work.
So, Dorothy,
last year,
yeah, that's the point I want to get to now, the legal system and the legal processes, because justice is not just emotional, it is institutional. But for many women, for many children, for many survivors in Nigeria, reporting abuse means that they face police skepticism, long legal delays, public scrutiny, and systems that do not always believe them. So what are the most common institutional failures that survivors encounter when they attempt to seek justice, when they attempt to engage with this legal system?
So last year, I think it was in October last year, a minor was committed to Suleja prison in Abuja, you know, by a court in Abuja.
Yes.
Twice in 1 week.
We covered the story,
Absolutely. Till date, we tried to get services for the minor, and 2 million naira was charged for us to cover the legal cost. But the minor could not cover that.
Yeah.
We were able to pay only 1 million naira. And I can't tell you how badly that case has been, how negatively that case has been affected, you know, how the adverse effects of not being able to meet up with the financial implication of that case. It has totally affected the minor, it has affected the mother, it has affected the other caregiver, you know, very adversely. Now, aside not being able to do that, the minor's address was published by the police on social media, and that made them not be able to go and still live in their houses. A big thing. When you come out and you speak about whatever your issue is, instead of facing the facts of the matter, chances are that under the threats of with cyberbullying or the cyber laws, you know, cyber crime act, you are going to be gagged. How many people? I was at an event recently in Imo, and somebody said, they always say, if you see something, say something and do something. But now, because of the love of your life, if you see something, will you say something? Everybody, would you say something? I'm not being a hypocrite here, but I know I would not say, because I want my children to enjoy me. And that was something that the person who made this comment is somebody that everybody respects. And for the person to have gotten to that extent, it tells us that more and more, because the justice systems are failing us, more people are losing hope in Nigeria. And what is the way forward? You see, what is not budgeted for in Nigeria never gets acted on by the government. The tokenism, so somebody says 16 days of active tokenism has started. It's supposed to be 16 days of violence activism against violence against women and girls, and that's why everybody is wearing orange. The Ministry of Women's Affairs lit up their building with orange yesterday. Everybody is oranging the world from 25th of November to 10th of December. But when we finish oranging the world, or while we're oranging the world, to what extent are we thinking about how the lived realities of the survivors of sexual and gender-based violence actually relate to every aspect of community? I run a shelter. In the shelter that we run, we feed about 29 people now daily. A cost of meal per person per day is 4,500 naira. And you're doing over about 120,000 naira to feed 29 people in a day.
In a day.
What is my means of livelihood? This is why people see me and the first thing they think about doing is to run away, because they don't know what I'm going to traumatize them with or what I currently need in the moment. The 12-year-old who is in the who is 3 months pregnant, to what extent? We definitely know she's going to give birth through cesarean section. What is the current cost of a cesarean section operation? Who is going to foot those bills? If the baby she's birthing comes preterm, who is going to pay for the incubator? The children that are out of school or that are affected by violence, there are no waivers to keep them in school. And so the violence that affects them makes them lose classes. And by the time these children start acting up, it's like what? The ripple effect of the violence that people suffer is not taken care of either by the government or by society. What can the government do? Actually budget. DNF has a compendium of sector-specific solutions for inclusive leadership. When we look at different ministries, pet parent is the reason why many people who are getting transitional shelter from us are still stuck in our shelter.
Well, Dorothy,
they don't have a means of paying first-year rent.
Dorothy, just in line with what you're actually saying, the thing is, even when these laws exist, social attitudes, usually stand in the way. Talking victim blaming, stigmatization, and even deeply rooted gender myths that continue to silence these survivors and protect the abusers. And just like you have also said, after we're done wearing orange, what next? Changing policy is crucial, but changing mindsets may matter even more. So how do we break the cycle where daughters are taught, to be careful, but sons are not taught not to violate?
And can give us in about a minute and a half, Dorothy.
Yeah. Well, the first things I would say, center survivors in whatever you're doing, whether you're a media, you're a religious person, and center survivors. Centering survivors is centering humanity, and it is about time for people to reach out. There's a lot that people can do. We need to center survivors. We need to empower survivor stories. Maybe if more survivor stories were out there, a lot of harmful myths on how survivors think, how survivors reason, what survivors possibly are thinking will be broken. So center survivors, empower survivors. I'm proud of the people who support the Dorothy Njamante Foundation, which is a survivor-run organization. And what it does is it gives agency to survivors. It helps us to tell, this is how your housing laws affect us. This is how the price of food affects us. This is how the removal or fixing of the fuel subsidy affects us. This is how everything affects us. This is how the commercial banking services gets to us or affects us. This is how access to financing affects us. This is how not belonging to a political party yet being a survivor that needs empowerment affects us. And for what it's worth, center survivors. Because the next survivor could be me, it could be you, it could be someone we love.
Wow.
So we need to build this.
Yeah, Dorothy, we want to say thank you for a conversation that forces us to confront not just the violence itself, but the beliefs, the systems, and the narratives that allow it to continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
You have
Dorothy.
reminded us again that gender-based violence is not only just about individual actions, it's about a culture that normalizes silence, the media that shapes perception, and the institutions that determine justice, and the society that decide who is believed. If we want a safer Nigeria, then faith spaces, newsrooms, police stations, living rooms, classrooms, everywhere, we all have work to do. But because when women are protected, heard, and respected, the whole community rises. So we'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much for staying with us.